Today's episode of the DolphinsTalk.com podcast is brought to you by Caneswear. Caneswear is the place to go for officially licensed apparel for the Miami Dolphins, the Miami Heat, the Hurricanes, Florida Panthers, and all of the professional and college teams in South Florida. Looking for the latest jersey, a gift, or the newest hat to hit the market for your favorite South Florida team? Check out Caneswear for their overwhelming selection of sports apparel. Located at 2655 South University Drive in Davie, Florida, Caneswear has it all. Not in South Florida? No worries. Visit Caneswear.com to shop their inventory from the comfort of your home. Not in the United States? No worries there either, as they will ship to you international fans as well. Caneswear.com is the spot that Miami fans shop. That's Caneswear.com, Caneswear.com. You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast, the most listened to daily Miami Dolphins podcast on the internet.
Miami's got the Dolphins, the greatest of all.
Come on, Dolphins fans. Time to fins up.
We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl. Cause we're the Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one. Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one.
Joining me on the DolphinsTalk.com podcast is one of our old friends, Zig Fracassi of SiriusXM NFL Radio, Channel 88, and also on Twitter at Zig Sports Voice. Zig, how you doing today?
What's going on, Big Mike? How are you, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing great. It's late June. We're about 1 month away from training camp, and then really, that's football season for us. When we get training camp at the end of July, that's when we get in full swing here. So let's talk some AFC East. We'll talk about the Dolphins and all that stuff. And I guess the big story this offseason has been the contracts a lot of these quarterbacks have got. Trevor Lawrence was the last one before him, Jared Goff. The next ones in line are going to be, in some order, Jordan Love or Tua. What do you think about Tua? You think he'll get that big money deal this summer before the season starts?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not sure that's going to happen just yet because I don't know if the Dolphins have to be in that much of a rush, Mike, to make it happen. Ideally, I think you might want to see now with the additions that they've made, especially with OBJ on the offensive side, you know, if he's obviously going to be the guy that leads you to the promised land, so to speak. So, man, I mean, like Trevor Lawrence, you know, $55 million a year. Now, in context, you know, that's what, 2 years. That doesn't kick in for another couple of years yet. So he's still on his rookie deal, but still, You're paying to me on a lot of promise and on a lot of hope. So I think the Dolphins, they want to take care of him long term, but I think they probably want to see him go another full year. And then, like, all right, maybe then we'll finally pull the trigger on a Tua deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And this offseason, you spoke about Odell Beckham and that. And him now joining the Dolphins. What the Dolphins did is kind of interesting. And it is part of it because it's the salary cap era. They moved on from or lost a bunch of guys like Robert Hunt, Christian Wilkins, Andrew Van Ginkel, Raekwon Davis, Brandon Jones, Elliott, who are all like in that 26, 28-year-old age range. And they signed a bunch of guys, veterans, on one-year deals. They signed Shaq Barrett, Odell Beckham, Jordan Poyer, who just turned 33, Calais Campbell, who will be 38 in September. They went from a young team to an old team pretty much overnight. What are your thoughts on the roster overall with some of those moves and sort of how they've put this together in 2024?
I think they're going to take a little bit of a kickback in terms of losing Wilkins because I think he's one of the premier spots of what he does, you know, and I thought that was a big signing by the Raiders, which need to do that. But you know, Calais, here's a guy, class act, still, what he had 6 sacks last year with the Falcons.
6.5, I think, yeah.
Right, so he's still productive. Plus, he's coming back to where he went to school, University of Miami. So, you know, there's going to be a leadership issue, not an issue, but him providing more, which I think maybe, Mike, that's where they lost a little bit last year. I've been a big fan of Jordan Brooks for an awful long time. I think this kid's going to really be a nice add. You know, you still have the issues with injuries with Phillips and Bradley Chubb. So it'll be interesting to see how that happens. And you mentioned Poyer added. Some thought that maybe he was starting to lose his fastball a little bit with the Bills last year. But from Miami's standpoint, and I'm sure from Anthony Weaver's standpoint too, your new defensive coordinator, hey, let's, take a guy from a division rival, strengthen us, give us some leadership, and maybe weaken them at the same time. So they've gotten quite a bit older, but I think this is a Miami team, especially on the defensive side now, changing yet another coordinator. They probably need a little more experience there than on the offensive side.
Yeah, on offense, I think they did improve like the wide receiver depth. After Hill and Waddle, they didn't have much last year, adding Odell Beckham, and then they took some kids in the draft late. I think that helps. Running back depth after Mostert and Achane, then they traded up to get the kid from Tennessee this year in the draft, who some people thought was the best running back in the draft. And Wright, throw him in the mix there, helped the depth. Tight end, Jonnu Smith, just way better than anyone we had at tight end. So
I like
the
that.
Offense, yeah, so I think the offense is going to be fine. The other side of the ball, I think there's more questions. A, with a new coordinator, and B, more new players having to learn the system and everyone having to get on the same page. And then, like you said, no Chubb and no Jaylen Phillips, at least for the start of the year. Chubb, they're saying late October-ish.
Okay.
Hopefully. Jaylen, they're saying, September at some point, hopefully, if all things go well. So, once those guys are back, I think they'll be fine. But it could be a rocky first month there with a lot of new pieces.
Well, that too, and I mentioned Anthony Weaver, of course, came from the acclaimed Ravens defense. I'm a little biased being a Notre Dame guy myself, a fan anyway, and he was a standout there for his collegiate career. Had a very good pro career too. So, yeah, there's always going to be that concern too. So that's where guys like Phillips, like guys like Chubb, probably going to have to ingrain themselves here, Mike, into the scheme to learn it. And then obviously while they're recovering, be able to, assimilate themselves eventually once they're able to get back on the field.
Yeah, and the first-round pick, Chop Robinson,
yes,
he's going to be thrown to the Wolves early. I mean, he can get after the quarterback. There's no question about that. It's about everything else. But if he can sort of pick up everything else at a somewhat quicker than normal level, I think they're going to be fine there because he is explosive. Watching him at Penn State, he is explosive. Mike McDaniel, heading into year 3 as Miami Dolphins head coach, led them to the playoffs his first 2 seasons, which for this franchise is no small feat. It's not like they're in the playoffs every year. So going to the playoffs in his first 2 seasons, it does matter. Mind you, they haven't won in the playoffs yet. And I think, for me at least, those last 2 seasons, and I know a lot of it had to do with injuries, they were 8-3, then 9-3 last year, and they sort of fell apart down the stretch. Injuries are a factor there. But what are your thoughts on Mike McDaniel heading into year 3? Overall, his coaching style and sort of what you see from the outside with Mike McDaniel, because he's not like your typical NFL coach.
Oh gosh, and trying to listen to one of his press conferences, does more rambling than the Allman Brothers, for goodness sake.
But that's genius. That's part of the genius, because some of these guys, they get asked a question that they don't want to answer, and it looks like a hostage video, and they don't know what to say.
True.
And he just knows, I'm going to give you a word salad for 3 or 4 minutes, and then everyone's going to forget what was asked and we're on to the next one. So that, and I see that every day with him. That's the genius of Mike McDaniel.
I agree. And I agree with you, Mike, that I think he's done a terrific job. His first 2 years here, he did come highly acclaimed as the 49ers run coordinator, basically. And, I think he's been innovative. Have there been some issues with the defensive coordinators? Maybe a little bit. You mentioned the fact that they've started good the first 2 years under his regime, but then faded. So you got to wonder, entering year 3, does he have to maybe dial some things back in terms of, well, even though you've got restrictions now with the CBA, maybe you still have to, I don't know, watch your conditioning, watch how much you work out, early in the season as opposed to later in the year. So I think that's a concern. Obviously, being able to navigate that, and also the injuries that have been problematic. And quite frankly, you've got to play. If you're Miami, Mike, you've got to play to have home field advantage, because quite frankly, December, January, chances are you're not winning in Buffalo. You're not winning, even if the Patriots were good, but just using a cold weather axiom here.
In Cleveland, at Baltimore, at Pittsburgh, up north.
Although your last 2 games, Mike, are in those climes.
Oh, I know.
Cleveland and the Jets, right?
I know. Trust me, I know. Jets, I have a little more hope for because the Jets could always, as they say, they could jet it up. So that one I have a little more hope for because it's the Jets. The Cleveland one trying to block that pass rush, I'm already nervous about it, and we're in June because that pass rush is just unbelievable with Cleveland. But I also think, too, for this Miami Dolphins team, for Mike McDaniel, for the quarterback and Tua, they have to kill some of these narratives and exercise some of these demons. And the only way to do it is have games like that in the schedule. They never beat the Bills. I think they're 2-13 against them in the last 15. You know what? Beat the Bills. You got them at home week 2 on a short week this year. Beat the Bills. No excuses. You have to beat teams that are good. They have a few on their schedule this year, obviously. Beat a couple of those teams. You don't have to beat them all, but beat a couple. And, late in the year, when everyone says you can't win in the cold down the road, you know what? You got a couple opportunities. Figure out a way to do it. Because I know the fan base, the players, and I'm sure the coaches are sick of hearing about it. Well, shut everyone up and just go out there and win a couple of these games, and you won't hear about it no more.
Oh, exactly. It's although I don't know if they're gonna, practice in Antarctica 2 weeks before the Browns or anything like that. But
no, I would just think come up with a way to block Myles Garrett.
Yeah,
let's start there.
That would help.
That would be phase 1, and then everything after that is phase 2. But don't forget phase 1. Block Myles Garrett. The AFC East this year, I think, looking at it, it's probably the most wide open it's been since pre-Brady, because even after Tom Brady left, the Bills were kind of the best team. There was a little bit of a gap between them and Miami and the Jets and the Patriots. I think this year you got 3 teams who can legitimately say heading into the year, we could win the division. I think the Patriots are a little ways away. Let's go through some of these one by one. Let's start with the Bills. Now, they've lost a bunch of players too, and it's not the same team that they've had in previous years. The big question I have with them is I don't think they've done enough at wide receiver to replace what they've lost. Now, they have a great quarterback, and he's going to overcompensate for some of that. But does the wide receiver depth with the Bills concern you at all with them?
It could, because obviously Stephon Diggs is one of the better wideouts that there is in the game. But, sometimes I think if you want to draw the axiom, Mike, you could have like an A receiver and then C's or D's. So if you wanted to play the report card game, where maybe now, hopefully Shakir continues to emerge. Keon Coleman, who's already been a phenom and already well received up in Western New York. If these guys, Claypool, who's young enough, but he's been a disappointment, if he can somehow find the form of his rookie year, Valdez-Scantling, who came under a lot of criticism last year in Kansas City, although when push came to shove, Mike, he made the catches they needed in the AFC Championship game, in the Super Bowl. So I think the idea is spread the wealth a little bit, because I think a narrative up in Buffalo was that Allen was trying to force feed Diggs too much, which maybe led to some of their problems. So if you have lesser, not prima donnas, but lesser, alphas, let's call them, and have more of a committee approach, maybe that's what they're thinking there with the Bills. So, there's no A guy there, but there's probably some B pluses potentially.
And I think that would probably force what we saw last year, too, when Joe Brady took over. They ran the ball more and had more success.
Yes.
I think maybe not having those top-end wide receivers there, they're going to run the ball a little bit more.
Davis is going to be a beast. That kid.
More of a balanced,
I love him.
Yeah, I think they're going to run more, too. So we'll see what goes on there. Now, the Jets, as we said, it's the Jets. And you never know what the heck you're going to get with the Jets. The head coach, I don't know if he's very good. He seems like he's not in control of much. The quarterback, he's running the whole organization. He's there when he's there. He's not there when he's not there. And when he is there, he says, no more distractions. And, of course, he's the biggest distraction in the entire league, let alone the team. There's a lot there. But they do have a lot of talent. You got to give them that. And if you look at their schedule, honestly, I know the NFL, they did them no favors by having them playing a Monday, a Sunday, then a Thursday to open the season. But the first half of the year, they play Will Levis, whoever the Patriots are going to throw out there, home against the Broncos, their quarterback, J.J. McCarthy or Sam Darnold. I mean, they got a lot of rookie quarterbacks on their schedule, especially early. So I could see them, even if Aaron Rodgers isn't the same Aaron Rodgers we've all known, even if he's like a third of that or half of that, they might win those games 17-3. I mean, I could see that too. But the second half of the schedule gets really tough. What are your thoughts on the Jets?
Well, I know being based up around the New York City area like I am, Mike, there's always a lot of discussion, and obviously with Rodgers and this whole thing where I think, Saleh basically made a mountain out of a molehill. I mean, if you're saying it's an unexcused absence, yet, there's been communication. Like, what are you doing?
Don't say anything. Just
Don't say
anything.
anything, right?
Yeah.
So having said that, gosh forbid if Aaron did go down or he isn't able to come back, at least you've got, Tyrod Taylor there as like a good veteran backup. Breece Hall, I think his, here's where they have the questions, Mike. They did upgrade the talent. Tyron Smith, arguably a first ballot Pro Football Hall of Famer from his time with Dallas. Mike Williams, very good receiver with the Chargers, arguably very good when healthy. Breece Hall coming off an injury. You got a lot of what ifs. You almost got like the house of cards here. God forbid if there's a windstorm and one of them dislodges the house, the whole thing could fall down. So the Jets are basically at this point a lot of, you got to stay healthy or else types. Defensively, my gosh, they're still as good as they get. Although you trade for Reddick,
it makes no sense.
Wanted a new contract, and yet he's not there. Why? Why did you do
the Jets?
That? Right?
That's the Jets, though. The Jets stuff up, and it's why it's been over 50 years. And I know the Dolphins haven't had a ton of success in 50 years. I get it, but it's not like this. The Jets are like they're on another. There's levels to this, and the Jets are another level when it comes to this stuff. And it's just I don't get it. I don't get it. But yeah, I mean, I think they have a chance to be pretty good. Or if you told me they were, 5-12, I'd be okay. It's the Jets. 5-12 sounds about right. I mean, it could go either way. It could go either way. And then you got the Patriots, who they're in an early stage of a rebuild. No Bill Belichick, although I did hear your friend Christopher Russo talk about him the other day, talking about him and his new lady friend.
Oh gosh, was that
a little much?
Rant?
It's a little much. Yeah. It's a little much. And if you came to pick up my daughter, I'd say, come on. That was great.
That's actually pretty good, Mike. I like that.
Yeah, it's a little much. But the Patriots are in like an early stage of a rebuild. I don't think they'll be, in the mix for the AFC East this year, but they could win probably 5 or 6 games. Wouldn't shock me.
But boy, is that defense good. Even without McCourty's gone now, so you lose a big anchor there. But my gosh, they re-up with Barmore on a contract. Uche, I like him quite a bit. Matthew Judon, arguably their best player. I think they got to take care of him. If Gonzalez comes back, the first-round pick from last year, he's healthy. That defense, Mike, is going to keep them in a fair amount of games. Then you look at the offensive side. I know Strange is coming off an injury. Their draft may not have been all that great last year, but Demario Douglas, 49 catches for a 6th-rounder. That was an underrated gem there. Stevenson, he actually got starters money as a running back, so good for him. And then Brissett returning, good character guy. In stretches, a decent enough quarterback. I think it's a good role model and mentor for May to learn from. I don't see the turnaround like the Texans did with DeMeco Ryans, but with New England, with Gerard Mayo, I could see this team. And again, Mike, it's one of those things, win 4 or 5 games and then be competitive in most of the losses. Then you're trending in the right direction for the Patriots.
Yep, and I think not only with May, but with a lot of those kids who were picked up high this year, maybe except for Atlanta, for obvious reasons. If they're close to being ready, I think you have to play them. In this league, we've seen get those kids on the field as early as possible because you got to find out if there's something there. And, of course, you don't expect them to win a lot as a rookie. I mean, what happened last year in Houston is the exception, not the rule, obviously. But
and they
I think you want to get them on the field as close to as soon. Not week 1 per se, maybe, but by week 6, 7, 8, if you think he's close, like get him out there. Let's see what you got.
Well, it also depends. What if the Patriots start 2-7?
That's different.
That might be the time to put Drake May in. I mean, they can't all be like the perfect scenario they had in Kansas City, where Alex Smith, who by the way was a phenomenal role model for Patrick Mahomes, he still played at a pretty decent level. But when you've got the Rolls Royce sitting on the bench, they got to get him in there before too long. So it depends. I think there's a chance, Mike, at least 2 of the top 3 overall drafted picks start opening day. Could be the third for all we know, because I think the other two will start.
I think the other two will too, which leads to my last question, which I ask you every year when I have you on prior to the season. Give me a team, any team who's a sleeper team flying under the radar, and a team who just a little bit overrated heading into the year who might fall on their face a little bit this year. I know I'm just throwing this at you, so I can go first. I got two.
Yeah.
Want me to go first? Here's my sleeper team.
Okay.
Give me the Bears. And I know it's a rookie quarterback, but if you look at that schedule, again, that schedule this year is very favorable in who they play. They got the Titans, not a strong quarterback. They got the Panthers. We know it's the Panthers. Washington, another rookie quarterback. You got Arizona, not the strongest team in the league. You got the Patriots, Vikings twice, and who knows who you'll be facing there. And you got the Colts, who essentially kind of like a rookie quarterback with the Colts because he didn't play too much last year. I think the Bears, how they ended last year on a high note, I think heading into this year, they added a lot of weapons on offense. That schedule is favorable. If that quarterback, I know he's a rookie, is halfway decent, I think they're going to win a bunch of games this year in the North, and I think the Bears could surprise.
Yeah, I like that one quite a bit. I would have gone with that one, or quite frankly, because they were 5-12 last year and vastly underachieved, how about the Los Angeles Chargers with Jim Harbaugh?
Where to go, place put up. Yeah.
Right. Hey, guy's a national champion, took the 49ers to the Super Bowl. The guy wins everywhere that he has. Chargers did suffer quite a few personnel losses. Eckler, Mike Williams among those in the offseason. Although Mack and Bosa both took pay cuts recently to say, hey, maybe we want to stay around this. I think Harbaugh is going to be perfect for Herbert. So to me, you still have these teams like Kansas City being talked up, Baltimore, practically that whole AFC North could contend for the whole thing. Buffalo still to a point as a contender, Mike. So give me the Los Angeles Chargers as that sleeper team, even though technically they might not be because of the Harbaugh factor.
Yeah, and plus I think too out west, I think the Raiders are a little ways away with their quarterback situation. Obviously, the Chiefs are the Chiefs, and then you got the team with the Broncos, who will probably be starting a rookie quarterback as well. They could easily come in second place there and have a solid season. So that one I totally see. And for overrated, I know this is a team you probably get the most phone calls about. The Cowboys are not going to come anywhere close to 12 wins this year. I'm not sure to take it back to 10. They play not only, of course, Philadelphia twice. They got the entire AFC North.
Yeah.
They go to San Francisco. They got Lions and Houston at home. That schedule is brutal for a team that did not have a great offseason. I know it's the offseason, and, it's all on paper. I don't think they had a great offseason, but that schedule, Philly twice, the entire AFC North, at San Francisco, Lions and Houston home, that's a tough road to hoe.
Mike, I might have to side with you on that one. 3 straight 12-win years under McCarthy, and now there seems to be some buzz that he's a little bit tired now, apparently, of Jerry undermining him, whatever that means. And what the hell was all in? I'm still trying to figure out what all in is with Jera, So when he speaks, sometimes you just got to let it go one ear and out the other. And then Dak still doesn't have his contract as the day we speak here, Mike. So you could potentially...
Lamb wants to get paid too, right?
Well, yeah.
Lamb wants to get...
You got to pay CD yet. You got to pay Parsons yet. So this is going to be interesting. So conceivably, we could have, if things go off the rails, a new quarterback and head coach in Dallas in 2025. And oh, by the way, and I've been a big fan of his for years, and I like the guy, Mike Zimmer coming back to this organization, this time as defensive coordinator. You wonder if Jerry doesn't go for the big enchilada with Belichick, if he moves on from McCarthy, if he just doesn't promote Zimmer to be the next head coach. So this could be a long year in Big D for the Cowboys.
I heard this question. I forgot on which show, and it might have been on your channel. I'm not sure. So I'll ask you.
Okay.
Bill Belichick, all joking aside with the stuff with the girlfriend, do you think that story would hurt his chance of being a head coach again in the NFL?
Not at all.
I think it's a fair question to ask.
Oh, I think it's fair. There's no doubt. But I suppose if you were owner desperate enough to try to win, and it
would be Dallas. It would be Dallas.
Well, yeah. Well, although the narrative though almost doesn't fit because The Cowboys are like this dog and pony show. And
Yeah,
Belichick is a straight football guy. I don't know if I can imagine him having a, answer for Jarrah from his radio show or Stephen Jones from his radio show. I can just hear Belichick. We just execute, that kind of.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't.
Yeah. Well, they made one more play, and so
they made one. Yeah,
on to
right.
Washington. Yeah,
right.
Right.
Well coached, special teams are great back.
Yeah.
It could be a 3-14 team or a 4-13 or
greatest team in the world.
Right, or it could be
you pull Lou Holtz. Lou Holtz could be 10-0 heading in the last game of the year, playing some school nobody heard of. He'd make them sound like the greatest school in the history of college football.
Like 1-4.
They do a lot of things well. Lou, they're 2-9. They ain't doing that much well.
That's right.
They ain't doing that much well.
Lou Holtz, gosh, I love him. Hey,
get him on with Mad Dog. That go on pay-per-view. Those two talking to each other.
Oh my gosh, that would be absolutely epic. But back to your question, I don't think it would matter. I think the X's, the O's, the pedigree that he brings, desperation. Yeah, somebody would hire Bill Belichick. I mean, still people think he is the GOAT. So,
well, he's only a few wins away from having the record, so he wants it. It's all, and whoever would sign him would make some money off there because you could probably sell every home game out until he gets the record.
Exactly.
So there's something that there'd be one team. I don't know which team it is, but there'd be one team to do it. Zig, thanks so much for a few moments of your time tonight. Everyone, be sure to listen to Zig Fracassi at SiriusXM NFL Radio Channel 88 and on Twitter at Zig Sports Voice. Sure, we'll talk to you again down the road. Enjoy the rest of your summer. And we're ending this because the hockey game just started and we both really want to watch it.
Yeah. How about this hockey in late June, right?
Late June. A little too late to me. It's but yes, late June. Yeah. Zig, thanks so much.
Anytime, Mike. Thank you.